How John 5:46 destroys the JW interpretation of Colossians 1:15. For had ye believed Moses, ye would have believed me, for he wrote of me. John chapter 5:46. Jehovah's Witnesses argue, Jesus is the first created being because Colossians 1:15 says he is the firstborn of creation. But Jesus himself gives you a nuclear-level key that exposes this entire argument. Step 1. Jesus says, Moses wrote about him, not the Father. John 5:46 is dangerous for the JW doctrine. Moses wrote of me. Jesus. If Moses wrote about Jesus, this means the God Moses saw was Jesus, the God who spoke to Moses. Was Jesus the creator Moses described? Was Jesus the only God Moses worshipped? Was Jesus? So ask a JW, if Moses wrote about Jesus, then who was Moses talking to on Mount Sinai? If they say Jehovah the Father, then Jesus is lying in John chapter 5:46. If Jesus is telling the truth, he is, then Jesus is the Yahweh Moses encountered. Step 2. Moses said the Creator acted alone. Now connect John 5:46 to Moses' writings. Isaiah 44:24. Moses' theological line continues. I, the Lord, make all things alone by myself. Moses teaches, Creator, one person, no helpers, no secondary creator, no created being acting for God, no one beside him. If Jesus really created all things, Colossians 1:16, then either Jesus is Yahweh who created alone, or Jesus is a liar. There is no third option. Step 3. Colossians chapter 1:15 does not say Jesus was created. Jehovah's Witnesses twist firstborn to mean first created. But biblically, firstborn is rank, authority, preeminence, not origin. Israel was called firstborn. Exodus 4:22. But Israel wasn't the first nation created. David was called firstborn. Psalm 89:27. Though he was the youngest son, firstborn, he was the one who rules over all. But here is the fatal blow. Step 4. If Jesus is created, John chapter 5:46 collapses. Ask the JW, if Moses wrote about Jesus, did Moses write that Jesus was created? Moses never wrote. God created another God. Yahweh made a helper creator. Yahweh made a secondary being through whom he made everything else. A created being created Adam and Eve. A created being created the universe. But Moses did write, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Genesis chapter 1:1, no second person, no helper, no assistant creator. So, if Jesus created all things, Colossians 1:16, who created Adam and Eve, a created being? Impossible. Moses says God alone created them. So, if Jesus created them, Jesus equals the God Moses wrote about, which means Jesus is uncreated. Jesus is the creator. Jesus is Yahweh. Jesus is the one Moses wrote about. Step 5. If JW interpretation is true, Jesus contradicts Moses. JW logic creates two creators. Jehovah creates Jesus. Jesus creates everything else. But Moses says God created everything alone. So ask a JW, why does your doctrine require two creators when Moses says there is only one? If Moses wrote about Jesus, John 5:46, and Moses insists Creation was done alone. Jesus cannot be a created being. Jesus must be the creator Moses wrote about. This is exactly Paul's point in Colossians chapter 1. Jesus is firstborn equals heir of all creation, creator equals maker of all things, uncreated equals exists before all things, sustainer equals holds all things together, not first created. Conclusion. John 5:46 exposes the false JW interpretation. If Jesus is created, Moses didn't write about him. Moses' theology collapses. Creation now has two creators. Jesus contradicts Moses. Jesus cannot be the creator of all things. John chapter 1:3 is false. Without him was not anything made. Jesus becomes a liar in John chapter 5:46. But if Jesus is God, Moses' writings make sense. Isaiah 44:24 holds true. Creation is done by one God alone. Colossians 1:15-17 fits perfectly. Jesus is the creator of all. Jesus is uncreated. Jesus is Yahweh made flesh. Jesus is exactly who Moses wrote about.